Hiya, my name's Sally and I work as Community Engagement Officer for Don Catchment Rivers Trust. This fish pass here is part of the Living Heritage of the River Don project, which is a 3-year Heritage Lottery funded project all about engaging people of Sheffield, Rotherham and Doncaster with the River Don again. And what you can see behind me is one of our fish passes. So our trust has built 5 fish passes on what we call orphan weirs in Sheffield. So these are weirs where the ownership has sort of been lost in time, and they were weirs where no fish passes were planned. So why this fish pass is important is because it's going to hopefully help the return of salmon to Sheffield for the first time in 200 years. Salmon disappeared from the River Don long ago, mainly because of weirs. Weirs were put in, of course, to fuel the steel industry, to put water mills on the side of the river. And these weirs, we no longer need them, but they're still in place and they just cause a huge barrier to fish migration. So salmon, as we know, return to the river they are born in. They have an amazing homing instinct, but unfortunately these weirs just block their passage. The water is too shallow for them to travel up the weir basically, and the weir is too steep. A lot of weirs also have a bit of a step which you can't see under the water, and this just means they really struggle to sort of climb up it and go to their spawning grounds where the river is oxygenated, the gravel clear, and they have those perfect conditions for laying their eggs. So historically, before the building of weirs, the Don was absolutely full of salmon, and salmon actually was so rich in this river that market prices were as little as 2p per kilogram in the 1600s. So absolutely loads of fish for people to eat, and they were a staple of people's diet. The building of weirs increased basically, and by the 1800s the salmon had disappeared. And this wasn't helped by things like the Industrial Revolution really coming into play at this time. So contamination, pollution, things like that started to affect the river. And by the 1980s the river was dead, it was devoid of life. Another huge factor was sewage, so the growing population meant there was a lot of sewage that wasn't being treated properly going into the river. And it wasn't really till the 1980s, 90s where better legislation was put in place, and when sort of water quality improvements were made, especially with sewage treatment, that the river began to look like the river you see today. It's now full of wildlife. It's definitely wildlife rich. We've got otter returning, kingfisher, all sorts of wonderful wildlife to see. But the thing we really are missing are those salmon that historically made their way up the Don. And fish passage solutions hopefully will help that. We're hoping to see salmon back in this river system by 2025. So it's within our lifetimes. A part of our project, as well as doing the fish pass works on 5 of the weirs in Sheffield, was to encourage people to get involved in the river. So we've had a wonderful 3 years of training days for volunteers, where we've done wildlife walks, we've had community discovery events, and we have a volunteer team who are fantastic that you're more than welcome to join in with. Just if you want to do that, email volunteer@dcrt.org.uk.